All right, so if we are solving this system of equations by substitution, the substitution part means that you need to isolate for one of the variables and substitute what that variable equals into the other equation. Substitute. We don't want to substitute, or we don't want to isolate for an x, because in most of these we have two different x terms, x squared and x. So if I isolate for x and I throw that into the other equation, I'm still going to have two variables. It's going to be a problem. So always isolate for y. If you only have one sort of type of y term, then isolate for that. Because you see you have x squared and x, so don't try to isolate for these. So let's go and isolate for y. It shouldn't be that big of a deal. Both of these have a negative y in them, so you just have to pull a y to the other side. So this one's going to be easiest, the first one. So the first equation becomes x squared plus 2 equals y. Does everyone see that? Moving this y to the other side. The second equation is going to stay the same. But instead of y here, and I'm going to do two things at once, I'm going to substitute what y equals in the first equation. I'm going to substitute that here into the second equation, because this is where y is in the second equation. So y is now x squared plus 2. The other thing we have to be careful with is we are subtracting. You see this minus sign? We're subtracting an entire expression. So you should use your brackets there to be careful that you don't mess up. If you don't use brackets there, you're going to mess up. And the reason why you want to use the brackets there is because this is actually minus x squared minus 2. You see, if you didn't have the brackets there, you might just write minus x squared plus 2, which is incorrect. So when you subtract an expression more than one term, always use your brackets. Then distribute that negative sign so you get everything straight, okay? All right, so here I just have one variable. That's great. It's going to be quadratic. No problem. You know how to deal with that. Let's take this over to the other side. Let's take everything over to the left, actually. So I have positive x squared on the other side. I have plus 4x there. I have 14 minus 2 is 12 on this side, so I'm going to do minus 12 over here. Okay? So 14 minus 2 is a positive 12 on the right. It's going to be a negative 12 on the other side there. So we're getting close now. Now we got a quadratic, and so now I want to either use quadratic formula or factor. I think I can factor this pretty easily, like x plus 6 and x minus 2. So factoring, this is going to be pretty easy. These are two integers, so that's great. And looks like we have x equals negative 6 and positive 2. Now, I haven't checked to see if that's the right answer. I have no idea. What I would do is you should verify your solution, because that's what it says here, verify. So you need to check. That means if I put x into either one of these equations and y into either one of these equations, it should be a true statement. So negative 6, I'll do the first one, squared, minus, oh, we haven't figured out what y is yet. I just have two possible values for x. So y here is up here. I can find out what y is. If I put negative 6 in for x, I get negative 6 squared plus 2, and that's what y is going to be. So that's going to be 36 plus 2 is 38. So y is 38 when x is negative 6. So into this first equation, I'll do x squared minus my y, which is 38, plus 2 equals 0. That's going to be 36 minus 38 plus 2. That does equal 0. That's good to go. All right, what is the y value when x is positive 2? Well, I can use this same thing right here. When x is positive 2, then y is going to be 2 squared plus 2, or y is going to be 6. 4 plus 2. So y is 6 here when x is positive 2. So let's verify. I'll use a second equation here. No, doesn't matter which one you use, but I'll put 2 in for the x and 6 in for the y. So 8 equals 14 minus 6 is 8. That's true. Okay, So solve each system of equations by substitution, verify your solution or solutions. So it looks like we have two solutions, and that is the pair -6, +38, as well as, and I don't know if I've shown you this before, but you can, this U is a symbol in sort of set theory. It just means in union with or as well as. Okay, so that's what I usually use as a symbol, and it's pretty easy instead of words or whatever, so it's easy for you guys to do that too. But -6, 38 as well as 2, 6. And you could verify that by graphing on your graphing calculator if you want to check. You do have to know how to do this doing algebra though, so that's what this section's all about. Now that was A, and you guys asked about C, right? So apologize, just to get started on A. Let me do C. I'll do C right now. Was that were those answers verified there? They were good, right?
Yeah.
For those of you that did that question, okay. All right, let's do C. I'll speed up C here for you. So those of you that asked about that. Okay. So substitution, what's easiest to substitute? Well, probably if I get this t over to the other side, that's pretty easy to do. So 7d squared plus 5d minus 8 equals positive t. You see that? So this is what t equals. I'm going to put t into the second equation there. So the second equation is going to look like this. 10d minus 2 times what? Well, 2 times all of this. 7d squared plus 5d minus 8. It's a simple substitution just of three terms there. And that's going to t equal, yeah, and then continuing on with the second equation equals -40. So now I've got one equation with only one variable, and that's the d. Okay? Everybody okay with that substitution part there? Isolating for one of the variables, substitute into the other one? Okay. So I've got 10d minus, now this is going to distribute, so 14d squared minus 10d plus 16 equals -40. So I distribute. Now I'll gather like terms, and 10d minus 10d, those are gone. So that's great. -14d squared. I'm going to get d by itself, so it's probably a good idea to get everything else on the other side. So I'll move that 16 over. So that's going to be a minus 16 over here. So -40 minus 16 is what, 56? I'll divide now by -14. And what's that, 4? So that's going to be 4. So take the square root of d, and I should get plus or minus 2. Positive or -2 for an answer there for d. Anybody get that? Okay, some of you did? All right. So 2 options for d. I should find out what the t is for each option. So if d is +2, then I'll switch colors over here, but t then would be equal to 7 times +2 squared plus 5 times +2 minus 8. So with the +2, t is 7 times 4 is 28, plus 10 is 38, minus 8 is 30. So it looks like we have +2, 30 as one of our solutions, and we'll check that a little bit later. And then if it's -2, so let me just adjust this, -2 in there, -2 in there. I still get 28, but I get minus 10 minus 8. So that should be just t equals 10, 28 minus 18. So I have -2, +10. Okay, so we just checked that, and that is the answer there. So two solutions there, those 2 points. So any question about substitution, number 3? Okay. Let me help you with number 4, is elimination. So let's take a look at number 4. Okay, so let's do 4C. Now this is by elimination. So that's when we have to line up the like terms from both equations in vertical columns, making sure that the one variable that we want to eliminate has a positive and a negative of the same number coefficient. So we want to try and organize it that way. So for C, It looks like I'm going to have to shuffle some things, right? So if we shuffle some things, we got to get the p's kind of on top of each other. I like doing that anyways. So let's bring the 5p squared to the other side of the equation. So that's a minus 5p squared. Okay, let's leave the equal sign there. So I need the p is already on the right, so that's going to be 10p still over on the right side. The m term, I need to move from the left side to the right side. So that's going to have to go as a minus 5m. And then the 8 has got to go on the right side too, so that's going to be a minus 8. So I think we did this correctly here. Let's just double check. So minus 5p squared, and then minus 5m. The 10 was over there, and then the 8 was on the other side. Okay. So it looks like we've got this for our second equation. Everybody agree with that? Or any problems with that? Okay, so now I've got my like terms on top of each other. That's great. Do I have any situations where I can eliminate something? So it looks like I'm going to try to eliminate the m, right? That's the odd variable out. I've got two different p terms, so I'm going to try and eliminate the m. Can I just add them straight away right now and eliminate the m? I've got a negative 2m and a negative 5m. Is that good? No, I have to play around with that, right? So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to, and one is not a multiple of the other, so I'm going to have to multiply something to both equations. So let's go this one times 5, and this one times negative 2, because that will give me a negative 10m, and this will over here give me a positive 10m. You see, that's what I want. So let's write that up over here. 5 times 2p squared is 10p squared. So I'm distributing this right here. That's going to be equals 5 times this is going to be 20p minus 10m. And then one more is plus 30. Okay. The second equation, I'm going to multiply this 2 all the way across to everything. So that's going to be a positive 10p squared equals negative 10p positive 10m and positive 16.
Would that be negative 20p?
Negative 10p, negative 20p. Yeah, that should be negative 20p. Thank you. Positive 10 and positive 16. Good. Anything else? Okay. All right. So now we're ready to add, and actually, as it works, turns out I'm going to be able to eliminate 2 terms here. Both these terms are going to be gone. So that's excellent. That makes solving after this step pretty easy, because you don't have to do quadratic formula or anything. You have just one term, the p, you can solve for there, just like the last question we did. So when we add these up, and I saw some of you in some of your work, you were subtracting. That's okay to subtract if you have, so for example, if you have positive 10m and positive 10m, and you subtract one equation from the other, in effect, that's exactly the same. You should get the same result. The only problem with that is that subtracting negatives sometimes trip up students, to be honest with you. So I do not recommend subtracting. I recommend multiplying by a negative and adding everything. If you do everything the same and you add, there's a little bit less opportunity for mistakes to be made, but you can subtract, as I've seen some of you do in your work. And again, I think maybe in the textbook they've given some examples that way. So you can subtract, just please be very careful with your signs. I always like adding. So 10 and 10 is 20p squared. These are gone now, and these are gone now, and equals 46, looks like. Okay, divide by 20. What do I get? 23 over 10. 23 over 10. Okay, is this going to be a nasty, messy fraction question here, is it? Anyone know? Yeah? Some nasty okay, no problem. So p then is equal to plus or minus root 23 over 10. Can't simplify that. We're going to leave it as an exact value there. So you got 2 options for p. If you plug that number in, it's going to be a little messy, but you can find your values for m. Okay. So how you do that, you have to solve for m somewhere, it looks like. So you're gonna have to get one of these m's by itself to figure out what the partner m value is for each of these p's. All right. So if I do that, I'm gonna work on the first equation, which is gonna be 2p squared. I'm gonna get this minus 4p and minus 6 equals negative 2m. If I divide everything by negative 2, I'm gonna get m by itself. So that's gonna be negative p squared plus 2p plus 3 equals m. So negative, let's do the positive version first. It's going to be a little bit of writing here, all right. This is going to be a little nasty. Positive, 23 over 10 plus 3 equals m. And when you square a square root, that's pretty easy. Those cancel out. So you're left with negative 23 over 10 plus 2 root 23 over 10. That's just how you have to leave that. Plus 3 equals m. And you can gather the fraction and the number. The radical you can leave separately because we're going to leave this as. Does it say in the question they want decimals or no? No, it doesn't say anything about that. So we will use this opportunity to work with our radicals because they're tough to do, and working with radicals needs to take some practice. So 3 as a fraction over 10 is going to be 30 over 10. You good with that? So 30 minus 23 is 7 over 10 plus 2 root 23 over 10. Okay, now if I did everything correct there, this should be your m value. So it looks like we have the first point is root 23 over 10, comma, this number, 7 over 10 plus 2 root 23 over 10. So that should be our first solution, and we'll check that. Okay, so this one is the first exact value point. That's correct. And the only other thing we need to do now is put the negative value in. So what's that going to change? Well, if we did negative here and negative there, the only thing that's going to change is that this is going to be minus here. This is going to be minus. So for our second one, I have negative root 23 over 10, and then 7 over 10 minus 2 root 23 over 10. Okay, now that's a very challenging question for PC20. I get it. Using your calculator just to figure out the decimals might make you feel a little bit better. And just so what were those decimals? The back of the book has the decimal form, right? So this in decimal should be negative 1.52, comma, negative 2.33. And then on top here, positive 1.52, comma, positive 3.73 is what these should be. Okay? So yeah, challenging question. That's a challenging one, you bet. Not beyond you, I don't think, but there's a lot of math, a lot of algebra, some comfortability there that you might not have, but that's how you would work through that. Okay? Any other questions?